Call the chairman will call the meeting to order at 4:32, and I'll recognize that we have a quorum for the special call meeting of May 26th. There's two items discussed tonight. These are layover items from our executive session last Tuesday. One is discussion of paying the portion of the Fairhope Hangar Partners development costs, and then the second item is discussion of approved changes to our existing ground lease rate and length. So let's start with three, and I'll defer to, or Don, you want to start the discussion on that?
Start discussion. Mr. Hanson, Don Hanson, and his 5 partners want to put up a hangar that they're going to own. It would be a long-term ground lease, and we've always talked about developing the west side of the airport, albeit not exactly this acreage. This was kind of snuck up on us. It's been on our plot for a long time. And then Hank is going to, when he redoes the master plan, he's going to integrate that area along basically from Bishop Road to the teacup handle, I'll call it, and maybe a little bit north of that as potential hangar sites. Now, Mr. Hanson has signed a lease, as you all know. That's a ground lease, and is looking for relief on some elements. He's looking for relief on a road construction, the gate, the power pump, the power installation running under the ground. What am I missing? The road, the hydrant line, the water hydrant line.
The fire protection.
Fire protection, yes. It's a 6-inch pressurized line which will be tapped into Bishop Road's water source. So the debate is what we want to give him, if anything. A lot of these infrastructure costs, it could be considered to be like if I was a builder and or developer, more accurately, and I was developing a subdivision, what would the typical subdivision costs be? Road, sewer, water, electric, typically all paid for by a variety of sources by the developer. In this case, we're essentially the developer, the landowner. And in Mr. Hanson's defense, for one thing, he got into the lease before he found out about this hydrant line. And the costs escalated on him to a point where he's negotiating for some relief. And that's why we're here.
And that's a pretty good summary. So now I think I have a pretty good idea what the costs are. I think the number for the fire protection is around $35,000.
Defer to
Vince?
Vince, 37, is that right number?
37.5.
Okay.
Okay. The electricity was around $15,000. Is that the number we've heard there? The water, the portable water was around 2. Or maybe.
Yeah, the water can be tapped off of the hydrant line, so I'm not too worried about that.
And then the gate is around 10, but we could always do that next year.
Yeah, that's a cattle guard. We can keep it as a cattle guard gate for what it is right now.
So.
And the road's 22.5.
Road's 22.5. Okay. Well, I mean, that's a lot.
Oh, right.
And what's the annual ground lease?
It's on that sheet. It's on that summary sheet. I don't know.
4,500.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And Mr. Hanson has asked for a variety of methods of handling this. Either he could potentially build a road and we pay him back when we get FAA funding or not. That's a little not so clean from our standpoint. He has volunteered the road already.
Yeah. And
that's a matter of public record. The hydrant line snuck up on it. That was after he signed the ground lease.
Will?
You know, we have talked about building hangars down there as the authority, and we've also talked about building hangars on the east side. I think we need to decide to focus where we're going to build hangars first. if we choose the east side, which would be my preference, I don't know why we would be investing in a private enterprise across the runway when the proposal presented to us was a no-cost proposal. Why should we now be funding part of it because they forgot about the hydrant? They got some quotes that were higher than they expected, et cetera. That's a private enterprise. That's the risk they take. I'm not for the authority funding that for them, especially on a ground lease of what, 4,500?
4,500 a year. Amy?
I agree.
I'm kind of the opinion that he does open up the west side for us, which is a good thing. We can do it fairly reasonably. I mean, I don't think we should give him a carte blanche, but I think we ought to cap it at a certain number, whatever that number is. And this is just our country. As a developer, we would have infrastructure costs anyway. Now, the fact that we spent $6 or $7 million on the east side, that's another issue to get development costs, already over that side. But
Was there some reason why they wouldn't build their hangars on the east side?
well, the east side was plotted originally, whether good, bad, or indifferent, for larger corporate hangars, for 1,200 square foot hangars. There were 6 slots. And the access to the T hangars, or the smaller corporate hangars, were really in a phase 2 that needed some additional infrastructure. And the authority's original intention was to build those, to get people to build corporate hangars, because that's who uses the fuel, the larger planes, on those 5 choice corporate hangars, and then build some T hangars on the, or box hangars in this case, at some point in time.
I think we started discussing T hangars over on the east side just because of the lack of, I should say, lack of interest, but not as much activity of people leasing ground spaces for corporate size hangars on the east side. So we kind of said maybe there's a possibility we could take those last couple of flats and the airport authority build some hangars. I do think that this does open up potential on that southwest corner that is not there. And whether at some point we, all of a sudden someone came in and wanted to take up all the corporate hangars, that would be the area for the authority to develop hangars. But I think it's going to open up an opportunity for other people to want to build their own hangars down in that section of the airport once it's opened up, I think. So, anyhow.
I agree with that, because I've spoken with a gentleman who is, we know his name, and he's talked about putting up his own set of hangars down there. Now, Mr. Hanson is an engineer, a retired engineer, and when he looked at the soil on the east side, he saw substantial costs just to get the foundation ready. That's one of the motivating reasons why he was looking at this southwest corner, because he thought he could get in less expensively and far faster. Only when he signed his lease did the city of Fairhope come back and say, oh, by the way, you've got to have a 6-inch pressurized hydrant line. And so his numbers are not as nearly as attractive as they were a couple of months ago.
To put that in perspective, if you look at what we've done on the east side, P10, which is the first plot towards the west, requires like 12,000 square cubic feet of fill. The ones at the far end where the corporate hangars would be more like 25,000 square foot. I mean, it's a lot more fill. That's probably what dissuaded him from going that way direct. Because we did show him that. I mean, it wasn't like we.
Well, he saw it with his own eyes too.
Yeah, he saw it.
pretty
He
quickly.
knew. And we put a lot of fill. I mean, it was $4 or $5 million of fill to bring it to where it is now. Yes?
I got a couple opinions on both sides of that thing. This opens up an opportunity for any other private investor or the airport authority to come in and put in some T hangars down there on the southwest side if we chose to. That's a positive. Yes, we do have the other side Yes, I do understand this group. They also want to be off by themselves, which is one reason they like it. I see the gate as a no-brainer. They can unlock a swing gate and go in and lock it up, and we don't put a gate there until we decide to put something there as an airport authority, or we get another private tenant wants to come in, then we'd have a couple of justified gates. So I would take the gate off the list. But he agreed to put the road in originally. I would take the road off the list, but I think we would have to demand that he give us the specs he was going to build it by, and we approve those standards. You know, we know it won't be asphalt quality standards. It's going to be something else as a temporary road, but we still need to know what we're expecting him to do. And then you get down to water and power. If we're going to use it, we ought to put water and power to it. I'm talking about airport drive. So I'm not opposed to those two. We need to, if we decided to do this, we need to go out and negotiate on those some more and see what we can do. And those would be ours. I at one time thought, let's give him X dollars. You can call it 10,000 or 100,000, whatever number you want to pull out there. But then that's not the best way to do it after rethinking that, because then we're giving him money, expecting him to do something else, and then if he went out and saved money, we already spent it. We'd be better off to pay for power if we were going to do it. Pay for power and water ourselves.
I think
those in the way we want them at our expense, and whatever we get it, if we get it all done for $10,000, great. He gets the service, we save money.
I would feel real uncomfortable writing him a check. I mean, I think we ought to write the,
I agree. Nothing against him.
yeah,
but that's not the way to
Riviera
go.
or whoever we get to put the utilities in there.
An important point is, I talked to Hank Eubanks last week, and I didn't quite know this, but he said that he has this road, I'm going to call it a construction road, a gravel construction road, platted out to where it runs right down the center line of the future taxiway of the hangars that would go toward Bishop Road. So as Vince pointed out last week, none of that material could go wasted or would go wasted. We could scoop it up and use it for the taxiway. So even though it's temporary construction, it can stay that way for potentially as long as we want it to, until a taxiway needs to go there.
And if, we ever wanted a taxiway, then we'd be eligible for federal funding to expand that project down there.
Yeah, and we could have a conversation with Graham, telling him what we're doing and telling him that we would like to, see if we do see if we could get reimbursed for the taxiway at some point in time over the road.
Yeah, I think Hank already said we could, if down the road, if we want.
It's not guaranteed though. It's
area.
Jack, to make sure we're talking about construction costs for the hangars, subsidizing some of the utility costs for the hangars on the southwest side.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I'm still of the mindset that if we need to go out and borrow money and build them ourselves, we should too. I don't know, we got the private investor group is still going to do it though, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's, to catch up, he's just asked for a little relief. He's got required by the city to put in a fire hydrant line. That's $37,000 that he wasn't aware of before he signed the land lease. So I think that group has requested maybe some help from the airport authority.
Development's expensive.
And I've heard the number that the cost will be around $800,000, or is that a good number? I mean,
That's probably a good number, yeah.
I mean, I think we need to go back to the point of what are we doing? Are we developing the west side or the east side? And that's where our infrastructure money should go.
We haven't made that decision
Yeah,
yet.
because the
If we-
return on the investment is not good.
What would be wrong with not fronting any of this for them? And if we decide to build some hangars, the airport authority down on the southwest side, we reimburse him at some point proportionally for what he's done. He came to us with a no-cost option. Now he's gotten some higher quotes than he anticipated, and he didn't think about the fire hydrant. So he wants us to bail him out at this point. I'm just not for that.
one thing we ought to consider, if the vote is not to assist in any fashion, financially in any fashion, would we be willing to let him out of his lease? Yeah, that way he's not stuck with a bad piece of paper, you know.
Well, not only has he given us a lease, he's paid the lease through 3 years. He's paid us almost $14,000.
He's already paid over quite a bit of money
Yeah.
to get where he is today.
I think it gives us more time to explore the options as well, though. You know, I know that they don't want us to kick it down the road, but you know, if we're not gonna assist and they're thinking about just, you know, backing out of the lease, which I don't disagree, we should let them out of, but it just still seems, I don't know, I feel like we hadn't had all the cards on the table yet. It feels, I don't know why, it feels rushed to me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it was rushed, but it was presented as no cost to us. There's nothing in the lease that obligates us. So I think it would be prudent to step back and make a plan.
Well, I mean, if we step back, what would we do? We get more information, we just say that we're not, as an authority, we're not gonna pay development costs. I mean, I don't think there's any more information.
Unless we're gonna develop the west side instead of the east side. And where are we gonna put the
We
hangar,
need-
the aviation terminal?
I see.
Is that gonna go near
No,
where we're developing
no.
hangars, or is that gonna go on?
No, I mean, the corporate hangars, again, my vision is the corporate hangars that we've got at least one person who wants to build a corporate hangar on the east side, a 12,000 square foot hangar, they would always go on the east side. You know, we had,
Right, but if we're gonna build the smaller hangars, are we
Smaller
gonna do that
hangars.
on the east side or the west side? And if we put them on the west side, then why would we build the terminal that we're talking about on the
well, because,
east
okay,
side?
that's a good question.
So what
I
is
think
our
that-
plan?
But
I
the
think-
terminal on the east side is more to replace the terminal at Continental.
Yeah.
It's antiquated, it's old, and that would be,
Yeah.
and that ramp's really stressed for large corporate jets. And that's, you know, that would be, I mean, I think generally, I don't think we'd want a terminal where there are T-hangars. I think we'd want a terminal where all the transit aircraft, I think that's the intent.
Like if
The
NetJet
transit
flies
aircraft
in, they
fuel
would use the
customers.
terminal we built on the east side.
Yeah.
For passengers to load and use the bathroom and let the pilot's lounge. I mean, I don't think we're rethinking that. I think
Okay.
the general aviation terminal would be, that we want to develop, that we've got supposedly getting the money for, would be on the east side. We would not move it to the west side.
I could tell you that the Hanson Group and others I've talked to don't care about being, because they've got small airplanes.
Yeah.
They don't need to be at a terminal, they don't need red carpets and things like that, and they don't need that kind of level of service, and they just don't need that kind of concierge level of activity.
But people that fly in the Faro for the first time, having that red carpet service is important.
Oh, I agree with you,
Your first impression of the community.
but they won't need that. But they'll just be jumping in their airplanes a couple of times a week and taking off and landing, and they're done.
All right, what about, if we do to build hangars, is there a preference for the west side or the east side right now? Vince, what are your thoughts on that?
Not to me. We have, obviously, that's the question we have on the table. We have more infrastructure on the east side sitting there. We have some good land that we could jump on the west side. It would be good for everyone.
Yeah, I think we initially talked about the west side, and that was our focus. I think we shifted a little bit to the east side just because there's been no interest in any land lease over there, and the infrastructure's there. And that's why I think the conversation shifted from the southwest corner to the east side. And that kind of came about when we started talking about the authority building their own T-hangars.
If my vote would be, if we were going to build as an airport authority a 10-unit hangar right now, I'd go right beside where Hanson wants to go. That doesn't mean we can't build the next one right there on the east side. And that gets us something going, starts bringing income in, starts paying for itself, and then we can still see what happens on the east side. And if it's not going as fast as we want to, our next one will be on the east side. I'd go on the west side first.
Where did you say? Next to where?
Next to where Hanson's proposing to go.
Oh, next to the Hanson's
If we were
proposal.
gonna build a 10-unit T-hangar per site, it's, a nice T-hangar. I would put it next to Hanson tomorrow before I go on the east side by ourselves. That's just me personally. I don't know what everybody else thinks. The long run, if we can hold out and find the right people, we'll get better tenants than us on the east side.
We'll get good tenants on the east side, people that we really want.
But if we don't, then we set ourselves up, here's our first one, let's fill it up. And then let's take that income and start building another one. What's that?
Yeah, right now, we have a list of about 10 names, 10 strong candidates that have expressed a desire to have, and they really don't care where it be, on the east side or the west side. They just need a box to protect their airplane.
If we're going to have a nice new terminal on the east side with an attractive drive-in and ramp and so forth, I think it would help to have more airplanes over there, based over there. Hence, I would vote for that as our first T-hangar development.
Where are we on infrastructure over there? Do we have fire hydrants in place there? Do we have,
On the east side?
on the east side?
We got everything.
We have the fire hydrant, we have the road, we're gonna have the road finished that goes around, you know, to the south.
We have the north
East.
road going east and west with fire hydrant and all underground
Right.
utilities there.
I think it would have to be replatted, because right now it's got 5 large hangars, and we're talking about keeping 3 and converting 2 to T-hangars. Sound
And it'd
right?
have to be a taxiway too.
That, right?
I mean, that's not anybody's, that's not part of our 5-year plan right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is why Hanson wanted to get that corner over there, because he
Sure.
knew he could have his hangar built so much faster than we could build it for him.
I thought we did have space on the east side designated for hangars or T-hangars and tie-downs and shade hangars and all of that.
We've got space for the tie downs now. Actually, they're using it now, but the space that was in the plan for the T hangars is in the next phase.
Okay.
Beyond, right now, the infrastructure's there for 5 corporate size hangars and that taxiway, and that's it. So, you know, and that's, I think, you know, we had talked to Don Hanson about that initially, but you were talking about 2-3 years down the road
To
in
get
reality.
that
I see, okay, I'm with you now.
Jack, we did ask Hank last week while he's redoing our master plan, could he show these, not big 10, but basic 11, 12, 13, 14, show those as box hangers / T hangers, so we wouldn't have to go back to the FAA. It could be one or the other as we go along. He said yes.
But that's not gonna happen until like September or October, after we do the master plan.
But it can be redesignated.
Yeah. So when we did it, we'd say either or, so we could be opportunistic as we went forward.
But we can't move forward on the southwest until that's done. And we can't do anything until that master plan's up.
We can on the southwest, because there's, on the master plan now, there's hangars down there.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yes, I've had that conversation. There's a group of T-hangars on that southwest side now. Yes. That's why that's one of the reasons we're here, is because we don't have to wait for the master plan to update.
Jack, I don't know if you were here when you walked in a moment ago, but the FAA, it's not guaranteed, but if we were to come up with road, water hydrant line, expenses, electricity, there's a decent chance we could get reimbursed in 2 or 3 years.
Would that be if it's us building the hangars? I mean, they can't reimburse it for the private investors, can they?
No,
I
he's
think
just talking about utilities.
infrastructure.
Just
There's
infrastructure.
infrastructure
yeah.
for that? Okay.
But
They could
that
possibly
road would
reimburse
qualify
us
because
if
it
we
wouldn't meet
never
the standards of the FAA.
Yes.
That's correct, until we
So
put
we'd
in
have to dig it up to the
Yeah,
internal
yeah.
road. That would, I'm assuming, the water.
But the road cost is, we got a pretty competitive road cost at 22.5. It's not killer money. I mean, it's not free, but it's not horrible.
The other thing, while we're having this discussion, you know, there is ALDOT money to build hangars. You know, both Bay Minette and Foley got $250,000 to build their T-hangar. So, I mean, I think we could, you know, I mean, if we wanted to move forward with our T-hangar group, I think we could get money. I mean, I don't know if the world's changed that much this year, but I mean, I think there's money out there to, there may be money to get if we had a plan.
Did they get ALDOT or FAA?
They got ALDOT.
For both of them?
They got LDOT, and that's discretionary money, and that doesn't mess up your.
Penalize you.
That doesn't penalize you.
Okay. I thought some of that money was FAA.
I'm pretty sure that I know Bay Minette's
FAA,
was.
They said, we're not gonna worry about accepting any money for the next couple of years, so.
I'm pretty sure Bay Minette's was real LDOT, like we've asked for the 250 for the general aviation terminal, that's discretionary money that LDOT has. And which we've been given, I mean, we gave it back last year.
So if we were to get a $250,000 grant, could we not build the road or build the infrastructure, road, water, whatever is required? And it would also have a good bit of money left over to go towards hangars and us not build them. And I mean, would we not be making a little bit of money on these? Would we not be cash flowing if we had to come out and borrow a little bit to finish building the hangars? I mean, that's a pretty good chunk of change, $250,000.
They give it to us. I mean, if you talk about the grant money for the hangars,
I mean, I know it's I mean,
that's a win-win right there.
it's a win-win.
If we pay for the hangars with grant money, we get the revenue.
We don't pay for it, I don't think you can build them for 250, but it would certainly be.
Take
Well,
the bite out
but
of
it
it.
might pay for
Yeah, and the
30 or
infrastructure.
40% of it, and by then the numbers work.
Well, the numbers are close anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, the
Well, they
numbers
should
work
be.
even, yeah.
I
But
think
I don't know that we factored in all the infrastructure that,
Hank has the numbers, but I think maybe that did
Not this part.
yeah.
20 hangars for, I think, 1.2 acres.
And let's not forget the $69,000 that's arriving whenever. I know he.
That's for another day.
Yep.
Let's get it first,
Yep.
then we'll talk about it.
We're gonna get it. What we do with it is for another day. All right,
I'm gonna go out on a limb. I make a motion, we spend, no more than $53,000 to provide water and power to this side, for this project to go forward. And in that, we get the Hanson Group to verify to us the quality and type of road that they're gonna have installed at their expense. And then that should allow us to get water, power, potable water, and the gate can remain a chain link entrance and exit until sometime down the road.
we have a motion, do we have a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I had discussion of where we would pay that from, because we don't have that.
Amy?
Sorry, it's my job.
My thoughts on that are that we've got, we've got $69,000 or $70,000 budgeted for general maintenance for the year. And how much have we spent so far?
We've already reduced the forecast on that 17,000, so we have about 25 left.
So we have $25,000 in general maintenance. And we're one cut behind, we got $5,000 in grass cutting. So we'll be down, so we're really talking about $20,000, we've got a $20,000 shortfall, as I see it. What do you think, Amy?
And the one positive, this will give us an incentive to start moving towards T-hangers. I mean, if we do this and infrastructure's there, there's no reason why we can't just start moving forward. We've got a list. I mean, the demand's there. Just
Let me see that.
start moving forward, do it down there, and not worry about it.
Well, while you're looking at that, Joe, I was going to make a comment that a short-term bank loan on $20,000 or $30,000 is just a couple $100 a month. I'm not trying to discount the cost of money, but with cost of money being as low as it is right now, I wouldn't be opposed to borrowing some.
Well, we've got some
money.
reserves. We've got $110,000. We've got an operating account, and then we have $100,000 in reserves. Two money market
We
accounts.
could get a loan and just take the
Yeah.
money out of
I
this.
mean, it's not like we'd have to borrow the money. We've got the money.
How much money are we earning on our $102,000 FBO fund?
What was it, like 2%?
Yeah, it's up for renewal, it's gonna be nothing going forward.
I mean, Will suggested we did put it in a CD, and it matures in August. And it's like, probably like 1.5%. It's gonna pay through, we're gonna get $2,000 in interest, $2,500 in interest for the year.
We could pledge some of that money and borrow against it, say a half, 3/4 over CD amount,
Yeah.
and be paying basically nothing. there's some avenues in there. None of them are great, but they're all viable.
Yeah.
Vince, so let me ask you a question. We're still in discussion, right, Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So your thoughts are, if we spend the 50,000, we're not just assisting another group, we're assisting the airport authority for future development in that area.
Right, this solidifying this lease, even though he didn't ask for any help, but we're getting the water hydrant done and the power to our standards, which we'll probably need to do anyway. And then we're getting the road to a standard we're gonna approve. And then if we decided we wanted to build a hangar and we got some LDOT money, or we just wanted to go borrow the money and build a hangar ourselves, this is benefiting us just as well.
If this doesn't benefit us, I'm not supporting it, but if it benefits us, I'll support it. If you think that
We would
long-term,
have to build a hangar on that side at some time for it to benefit us. Or find another private group that came in and we don't have to do it again because we've already got it there. Either way would benefit the airport fund.
okay.
Any more discussion? You want to, all those in favor of Vince's motion to spend up to $53,500? 53,000 to build utilities. We're going to do this directly. We're not going to, we'll fund the utility cost ourselves. We won't give this money to Hanson. Is that?
No, this stuff that we would contract pay for ourselves.
Okay. Anybody, that's the motion. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying no.
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 So the ayes have it, so the motion passes. Okay? Thank y'all.
I think Don hit the nail on the head. I mean, we owe it to the aviation community to, I think, build T-hangers, that's what people want, the business is there. You can fill 5 T-hangers and get as much, sell more gas than they would with a Citation jet and a big hanger, so.
Is there,
I think at this point, we need to start refocusing on our T-hangers on the southwest corner and abandon anything we discussed on these.
can you give the chairman the authority to talk to put together a plan for those 10 hangars and present it to Dr. Egerton for this year's funding? For the $250,000 grant?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll test the waters. I'll have to get Hank to do a schematic of where we want it. I think I know where we want them. We'll ask for the 250, and then I'll report back in June that he says we have a good chance, or there's no chance, or what our chances are. But does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think you need a motion to authorize the chairman to,
Okay.
I make
apply.
a motion that we authorize the chairman to engage with Dr. Egerman and AlDOT on possible funding.
So 10 box hangars on the west side. Vince, you'll help finalize the numbers? So that would be
Box hangers or T-hangers?
T-hangers.
box
So we
hangers.
want-
T-hangers or box hangers?
T-hangers. T-hangers are a lot more revenue producing than box hangers.
Okay.
Box hangers, you're wasting square footage. T-hangers,
Okay.
you get a lot more bang for the buck.
What would be the going rate? I mean, that'd be,
Depending on size, we've talked about, Vince has run some numbers, and we've talked about, maybe a mix of T-hangers the size of the ones that we have now, or we had, versus building some bigger ones that would have a larger door that could accommodate a cabin class twin or a large twin engine airplane. Amenities like electric bifold doors, which, they've got some down at Gulf Shores, they run at $600 a month.
and a bathroom at the end, and the end
Bathroom
cap?
at the end. But, we kind of threw around a number, maybe $420, $450 a month for a little bit more of an upgraded hangar for T-hanger rentals. And I think with our list that Don's coming, we can get an idea of what size airplanes people want. I think if we did maybe 2 rows, one of the larger hangars for larger airplanes and twins, and then, the regular hangars like we have now, I think, then charge more, obviously.
Can you firm up that list so I can use that?
I have it prepared. I can send it to you this evening. In fact, 2 of the airplanes, I've got not only their name and telephone number and
Sure.
email address, I've got the type of aircraft they've got. 2 of them have T-6s, World War II T-6s. So that won't fit into a T-hangar. That would fit into a box hangar. So we can be flexible.
well, Will, what's the cost difference? You said that more revenue from a T-hanger, but as a box hanger,
It's about the same.
Well, I mean, box hanger's just a square hanger.
Right, but I
You know,
mean-
a T hanger, I mean, they're nested Ts.
Right, but
So
if the
you-
T hanger costs twice as much to build, then the box hanger, then the efficiency doesn't
Well,
matter.
I think you're talking about several small box hangers.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
the
that-
box hanger, you're gonna use up a lot more real estate
Yeah.
and not really get much. I mean, a T hanger's built where it fits a silhouette of an airplane. So where you can get 2 T hangers to fit 2 airplanes, you probably could build 1 box hanger that, you know, maybe hold 1, or something like that.
I know, but I'm still hung up on the cost, but if a box hanger costs 25% of what it costs to build a T hanger,
Vince, don't you think? I think a
I don't
T
know.
hanger would be cheaper.
T-hanger's cheap.
so they're better, they're more efficient and cheaper to build.
Yeah.
Well, that's a no-brainer there.
But I priced up one that had 45-foot doors. We have 40-foot doors on our existing T-hangar. The 45-foot door put in a twin cabin class like Chip was talking about, couldn't get a higher rate.
The 40-foot is.
All right. We have a motion that you'll let the chairman investigate putting together a proposal to Dr. Egerton and submit it to y'all. Kind of test the waters.
You second.
What? Do I have a second for that
Second.
motion? Okay. And, all right, all those in favor of, of exploring the opportunity to put T-hangers on the west side, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right. So we've put item 3 to bed. Now we're going to talk about, we've got on number 4, just so everybody's on the same page, we have a proposal to build 12,000 square foot hangar on the east side in Lot T10. Okay? And when we were in discussions, the gentleman said he would do it today if we would do a 40-year lease. And I think the rate we quoted him was, I think we quoted him 27 cents a square foot, but but that's here or there, but.
We discussed 27 for 30.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so the lease rate is not a problem. He's looked at the lease, he had a couple of minor adjustments. One, he wanted it to signify somewhere that he could have a fuel from a fuel truck, which is, I think it's in there, I just hadn't perused it far enough, but that's kind of where we are. So that kind of came out to the point where if we give one person a 40-year lease, should we or aren't we supposed to reapproach everybody that has an existing lease, 30-year lease with us and give them a 40-year lease? And the thinking is that that's what we're supposed to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's correct. I think if you're going to offer the option to a new tenant, that with the prevailing FAA sentiment being that all tenants should be treated equally to the extent that they're similarly situated, it only makes sense to at least offer to the existing tenants the opportunity to extend to a 40-year lease, whereas, of course, right now they all have 30-year leases. So if it's contemplated that a future tenant could have that 40-year option, I think it would be proper to extend that as an opportunity to the existing tenants, all of whom have 30-year leases right now.
How about if I make a motion to get a second, then I'll be glad to discuss it in detail.
Okay?
If we don't get a second, then
We just stop, yeah.
All right. So I make a motion that we offer our existing tenants that have 30-year leases and a 10-year extension for those leases, that immediately raise their rate per square foot to 30 cents per square foot, irregardless of what it is now. And all of their increases when they hit their 5-year term. One of them, Cedar Creek's probably 3 years into it, and 2 years from now, when he hits his 5-year term, his rate increase will be based off the new 30-cent rate. I'm making this motion, well, I'll discuss that in a minute. Along with that, and I sent comment to each of y'all separately, so it would be done properly. Josh prepared a sample draft that I'd like to make part of this motion if it happens. So that motion would also include that we extend the term of the ground lease from 30 years to 40 years. We're not in any way saying they have to. It's a suggestion if these tenants want to. If they elect not to extend their ground lease, there'll be absolutely no change. If they do elect, and be able to take advantage of the 40-year term. It's not giving them 40 new years, it's only 10 more added to what they have. We would give them a letter from Josh, we could give them 60 days to respond, and they'd respond back to you, Joe, per his draft. There's a couple things that Josh put in there. Upon receipt of a written notice, our authority will prepare and deliver for execution an amendment to their ground lease. The written amendment will set forth an immediate increase in the base ground rent as of the date of that amendment from their current rate of 30 cents. The increase will take effect in the next scheduled payment of the annual ground rent. That will be properly calculated. All future payments of the ground rent will be based on the 30-cent per square foot price. The first 5 year would be based off the 30%. The next 5 year would be based off whatever that increase had become at the end of that first 5 year term. Everything else would remain the same, or they can elect not to take those 10 years, keep their square footage at the same price.
So that's a motion. Do I have a second to that motion?
Second.
Okay.
And Cindy, I'll give you a copy of what Josh Strike. I actually got a second, and I'll tell you why my thinking behind this is. We have one other competitor in the county that does ground leases, and they're in Gulf Shores. And they did some mixed leases at one time, and then they got strongly encouraged that everybody gets the exact same lease. So they changed them all to 40 years. We can get a little extra money, but the real positive I see, I think it will have a positive effect on our east side, just from a developer standpoint. When you throw in that other 10-year amortization of it, if you go build $1 million hangar in 30 years versus 40 years, some folks will jump all over. And I don't mean this like it sounds. A lot of the folks that have the money to build $1 million hangar, they're going to do the math and just say, this just doesn't make sense. And that's why they have the money to build that, because they do the math calculations all the time. 40 years makes a greater deal. It also sets them up where if they're 50 years old and they're 70, they still got a 20-year lease they could sell to somebody else and transfer it out of there, so the 10 years left on the lease. You know, or whether 40 and you'll be 60, pick out whatever age you want. It's much more plausible. It's what's getting some tenants to buy some stuff and build, or lease some stuff and build hangars in our competition south coast. And they have a few things we don't have, called beaches. And so they have a little more drawing card there. We also have a lot of corporate business here, and I think a 40-year lease would help. Do we give up 10 extra years of us not owning it and taking all the rent? Yes. But do we have an opportunity to get hangars built quicker? Yes. That's my thought about it. That's just my thought.
And our competitors in Gulf Shores are at 40 years. Destin is at 40 years, and Panama City is at 40 years. Mobile has a graduated schedule that if the investment's over a certain dollar, it goes 40 years. So that seems to be I didn't go Pascagoula, or, I didn't go that way, but I did go down the East Coast, or down to Florida. That seems to be 40 years seems to be the normal.
And the FAA is not opposed.
FAA, yes. They'll let you up to 50 years.
Above that.
Yes.
Vince, you brought up a good point that I hadn't considered, and that is right now the depreciation schedule in the lease is for 30 years. And I would just want to know, would that motion include adjusting the depreciation schedule to 40 years, or would that stay as a 30-year depreciation schedule in the lease?
No, we'd have to go to 40 years.
Okay, but that part of the lease would need to be amended as well.
Yes.
And that's part of the buyout provision that's in all of the leases.
Do you have any verbiage in the lease on lease assignment sale?
Lease, yes. The verbiage is that they must obtain the approval of the authority in order to transfer or sign the lease, and that consent will not be unreasonably withheld by the authority.
And then they just assume the remainder of the lease.
Correct. Correct.
But we would have the right to refuse that.
Yeah.
At least if we thought we needed.
If they were leasing it to
Yeah,
Jesse
we just don't want to have someone sell a hangar after 10 years, and then we give them another 40-year lease. They just pick up leases left on that.
I see a lot of problems with this. First of all, what about the lease that's been underway, the ground lease for 5 years? Are they going to go back and pay the difference in what they're paying now versus the 30 cents? Because if we're trying to make it equitable, they've gotten a discount for the last 5 years. That's one real issue I see. They're only having to pay 25 years at the higher rate on the ground lease. That's my first, that's a kind of a question. That's also one issue I have. But the bigger issue is we have 30-year leases, and at the end of 30 years, and these are, you know, I think everybody would say extremely nice hangars that have been built. And so I just ran a simple math. I said, okay, if we can lease that hangar at the end of this 30-year period for $2,500 a month, and I bet you anybody in here would say we could get $2,500 a month for one of those. For those additional 10 years, that's $300,000 worth of income. That's just for one hangar, and that's at $2,500 a month. What if you get $5,000 a month for it? That's $600,000 in income for one hangar, and for two hangars, that'd be $1.2 million. The difference in the ground lease for 40 years is only $76,000 after 40 years. So you're looking at potentially, I think, $300,000 absolute bottom, and maybe $600,000 or more versus $76,000. I don't think the math works. They want a 40-year lease because they want to get whatever they can get, because that's what, you know, makes business sense for them. But I realize we need a catalyst on that east side, but changing everybody's lease to a 40-year lease is a really bad financial decision to me for the airport authority. 30 years from now, 25 years from now, when we take ownership of these and we can start making real money, which is why we did these deals to begin with, and then we have to wait another 10 years to make real money. The math doesn't work for me.
Let me step in a little bit there. I did a calculation like Jack did and assumed I basically took the public safety hangar rent right now, which is $2.25 a square foot, and multiplied that times 4. It came up with $8 a square foot, and then used that as a terminal value of both Allen's. I just did Ray's hangar. We did that for the last 10 years. It was like $90,000 a year, but still a lot of money. And I did a present value calculation, and you know, Jack's right. It's we leave probably on a present value the 40-year plan with the terminal value, and the 40-year plan in the existing lease probably leaves about $50,000. It's about $50,000 at a year overall of the present value of the lease, of the 40-year terminal value lease. So Jack is right. It's not quite as aggravated as you said.
I said 300,000 over the 10 years to 1.2, and you just said 90,000 a year for 10 years is 900,000.
Yeah.
Sound like our numbers are almost right in line.
But mine's on a present value, so mine's on a present value is really only $50,000 difference, because those last payments are not as valuable as the pay. You know what I'm saying? Because you have to discount it back 35 years. You know what I'm saying? You discount those big terminal values back 10 years, by 35 years.
Not sure I follow you, but
I'll send you the calculation.
Okay.
But I mean, it's a
Josh.
present value calculation.
My memory is sketchy on this, but a few months ago, we were talking about we could differ on lease details between the east side of the airport and the west side. What's right or wrong about that?
My understanding is that came from a meeting with the FAA representative, where we had previously had Mr. Goldberg's lease, I think, at 27 cents per square foot. And then subsequent to that meeting, it sort of came up that on the east side, we really were not supposed to differentiate price-wise on a per square foot basis, but on the west side, I'm sorry, I apologize, on the west side, but on the east side, because the infrastructure was new and it was a new development, we could increase the price per square foot for the east side development. And so after that meeting with the FAA representative, there was the vote to amend Mr. Goldberg's lease to go from 27 cents per square foot down to 22 cents per square foot.
To match our other two.
Correct.
Other two on the west
West side.
side. And y'all have in your package a summary of the lease payments.
Jack, I think I agree with your numbers. On your first point though, Alan Baldwin's lease, Cedar Creek's lease.
I can't hear you.
Cedar Creek's lease, he's probably in the third, 3.5 years in that lease. So
Okay.
that's what we'd be giving up at the old rate before we jumped into 30 cents. If he wanted that raise is probably in the second year. So we'd only be giving up 2 years there. Alan Goldberg would be brand new. Of course, Don Hanson's would be brand new. The potential client on the east side would be brand new. So there's not a lot that we'd be giving up there. The unknown is, to the rest of what you were talking about on what we do those other 10 years, how fast will those 10 years really help us get tenants on the east side? That's the gamble in my opinion. And if it really gets us some tenants for those extra 10 years, we're better off to get those tenants. And in fact, with that income that we're not going to have into those 10 years that we're not going to get. The only problem is that's an unknown that none of us know, and that's an educated guess that it's going to help. We don't have any proof that it will help us sign a lease tomorrow, except for one tenant.
Except for one.
Saying they're ready to do it, but I really didn't make my motion based off, I thought this for a long time, but his opinion here the last couple of weeks that he would sign a lease immediately had nothing to do with my thought process, just to be honest with you.
I think that we have 2 tenants that sign 30-year leases, and if we have somebody that wants to be at Fairhope, I think they will sign a 30-year lease, if that's what their options are. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, I mean, I think we're giving up the farm to try to get it. That's my own
Well, if we
opinion.
want to be competitive, I mean, I know the company's getting ready to build a hangar at Gulf Shores. The company's based in Mobile. The guy that owns it has a place down in Gulf Shores in there, and I had been to our chief pilot, who's a friend of mine, about building it here. I said, you know, he asked the terms of lease, I said 30 years. He said, why would we want to build one there for 30 years? We could build one in Gulf Shores for 40. So,
We have 2 people that wanted to do it.
Do what?
We've had 2 people that did
That's
it,
true.
and it's only been a few years.
But we've had no movement on the east side at all. Anyhow, I mean.
And
I think-
Gulf Shores may be waiting for somebody, I don't know, eventually. You know, Gulf Shores and Mobile may be waiting for somebody to toe the line on a tighter term, you know? And we get to where we cutting the legs out from under each other, that we all get bad deals. But we don't know that.
Yeah. I mean, if we're sitting here 5 years from now and we got weeds growing up in the ramp on the east side, whereas we'd have hangers. I think if the one reason we did discuss a 40-year lease initially is just we need to be competitive, and no one does 30-year leases along the whole coast, so, I mean, that's kind of how the whole subject came about initially.
It still bothers me that the FAA, if if we had a 30-year, let's say we had a bid process and somebody said, well, I'll build that same hangar and I'll do it over 30 years. And somebody else's bid was, well, I'll build that hangar and then I want to keep it 40 years. Well, which one wins? The 30-year, right? That would be the best bid. So it does seem odd that the FAA makes you do the same for everyone when you're trying to negotiate business.
Well, I think, you know.
It makes you, we're gonna go from a good lease to a bad lease so that we can make everybody equal. I'm not so sure I buy all that.
Well,
Well,
the
that's-
FAA is not saying we have to go do anything,
Yeah.
but they don't oppose 40-year leases.
So would you be for?
Well, I mean, why couldn't we just tell this person if we needed to get them that we can give them a 40-year lease, but we're not touching any other leases we have? Why?
We'll get sued like they did in Gulf Shores.
It makes no sense.
Even with the east side, west side delineation?
It just makes no sense.
Add east side, west side, Gulf Shores.
Okay.
I mean, if the authority has no ability to negotiate better contracts for our, you know,
Well, as long as we're accepting federal money, everybody gets equal treatment.
So
According to the FAA.
you would be okay if we did the 40-year lease for this new person, but not go back?
that's what we had to take. I mean, I'd kind of like to know a little more details about it. I mean, I don't know, are they talking about putting $250,000 into a hangar? I mean, it's 12,000 square feet, you said? What kind of
It'd be
investment?
about $700,000. I don't know that, but
That's probably what we run, but
Probably $600,000-$700,000.
We got, Mr. Bones is worth what, 2 million?
his is, it's on that sheet. His is the city assessed value is 1.6 on the last sheet.
1.6 million over 30 years, or 750 over 40 years.
Well, nobody's gonna build a hangar like Mr. Bone built. I mean, that's, Alan, Ray Hicks's was $874,000.
I think he said it appraises for over $1 million, doesn't he? Now,
Right.
right, doesn't he say
Yeah,
that?
I
I think it's worth over $1 million. It's a 30-year lease.
think with the fuel facility, it's over $1 million, way over $1 million.
yeah, fuel facilities.
I'm not convinced. I mean, I'm not so certain I'm not saying I'm opposed to the 40-year lease for the new tenant, but, I mean, we have contracts with people. I don't know how you could get sued over. I guess you can get sued over anything, but I don't know why we would change an existing contract. If that's what it took, I'd be opposed to all of it.
All right, there's a motion on the floor to, Vince's motion has been seconded. Vince, you want to take our chances and see if we get sued? Do a 40-year lease? See if
Well, why don't we
get-
defer it for a month and maybe talk to Dr. Egerton and Graham and see how sure of a footing we could be on, saying from here forward, everything on the east side is 40-year lease, and everything the outweigh stay the same.
I'd be for that.
I mean, I think then we could have a good idea where we.
What if somebody said, I want that prime land and I'll do a 30-year lease with you, though? That's what I'm saying. There's, you know, they allowed competition. We had a competition to build when we only had 2 spots on the west side.
Yeah, but it took 10 years, okay? I mean, we've built 4 hangars in 15 years on the west side.
I understand, but there was a competition, though, for it, and so it was allowed. My point was, that was allowed.
3 hangars on the west side.
Yeah, 3 now.
3 hangars. Oh, well, you're talking about
Yeah,
Aaliyah hangars.
I don't know how we had a competition, and now all of a sudden they're not allowed on the, I mean,
Before considered Hanson's Group as one.
I mean, if somebody wanted to build the hangars, the Hanson Group was one, they said, well, we'll come to y'all, but we're not gonna require y'all to put in any money for infrastructure if you choose our group.
Well, I know what happened to Gulf Shores, they gave someone a 40-year lease and everyone else a 30-year lease sued them. Said, you're giving them 40 years, we should be able to get 40 years, and they had to give them all 40 years.
That's just,
Did they complain to the FAA, or did they actually file a lawsuit?
I assume it's probably the same path that Alan took on to get the fuel fund.
Alan just wrote a letter.
He wrote a letter to the FAA,
The
yeah.
just kind of.
Well, I think then we've got a big enough difference between the east and the west side, because it's a new development.
Yeah.
Can we delineate the lease and say
Well,
from
we've
here
got
on
way
forward
more
on
money
lease?
in the east side, and we've got,
I mean, everything, we've got
$11 million.
30-year leases on one side. I mean, if we, like I said, check with Dr. Egerton and Graham and see if that's a fair enough reason to say we can just do one lease on one side and one on the other. To protect ourselves, and if we want to offer a higher lease payment on the east side, then
Vince, would you give us a month, I mean, can we spend the next 2-3 weeks getting that, and then
I'll
come
look at all
back?
that, let's check it out.
But I'd still like to tell the potential tenant that we would work with him on a 40-year lease on the east side.
Can't do it.
Can't do that. So
I
we
won't,
just,
well, we can, but I won't vote for this, because we.
So what we wanna do
Why are we
is-
gonna ask the question if we're gonna do it for him anyway?
so so I need a motion that we'll basically just table this until I get more information from either
I
doctor.
withdraw my motion.
Okay. All right.
Get you, withdraw a second.
Withdraw your second.
They'll table it for a month.
The table, not per month, but to our June
Next
meeting,
meeting.
June 15th meeting. And Josh, your research is good from the FAA standpoint.
Well, that was, I mean, if I need to do anything more detailed, let me know. I mean, the research I did was to find out what does the FAA generally approve of with respect to a lease term? And the end result was, I don't remember exactly from the advisory circular, but it was generally between 30 and 55 years is what they will go along with. Of course, 55 being, I don't know, frowned upon would be the right answer, but the 40-year option is well within that range. Now, if I need to do anything more detailed than that, just let me know. And
then we've done a survey of the lease terms of the airports on the Gulf Coast. So can you think of anything else we can do? Does anybody know anybody in Pensacola? Do you know anybody in Pensacola what the
They
terms
don't
are there?
lease any, very few, they don't lease any land to build hangars over there.
And how about that? How about on the Mississippi Gulf Coast?
I don't know what they do at Pascagoula Gulfport. I mean, I think they do have, Mississippi Power had a hangar in Hancock Bank, but that it was built, I don't know what the terms of that were.
All right.
Well, yeah, you almost think that if the terms have to be fixed at an airport, do they not have to be fixed across the entire nation? I mean, federal government, federal money, I mean, can you say, well, what this airport's doing, you got to offer the same thing? I don't know. There's a lot of questions I think we need to get
We'll
answered.
give us some breathing space again.
There's a lot of real strong language in the FAA about non-discrimination of leases and terms and.
Well, I don't think anybody's been discriminated against if they willfully enter into a contract. I mean, if they enter into a contract 5 years ago and then somebody comes along and gets a better deal, when is it American to be able to sue somebody because somebody got a better deal than you? That's, I don't know. I'll say that if that's the case, the government is absurd,
Only because we're accepting federal.
which
grant.
we know they are.
If we weren't accepting
Hope you're
federal
listening.
grant money, we could do anything we want.
Yeah, if we developed that without the FAA money, then we could do whatever we want to
All right. Well,
We could give him a 5 and her a 10, and you a 15, and him a 2 if we weren't accepting federal grant. And then it would be a true, we could negotiate.
Well, when we set that bar, when we did this 5 years ago and started signing these contracts, we probably should have looked down the road as to what are we getting ourselves into, because the math still shows, you know, notwithstanding that catalyst that we need over there on the east side to get things going, but the dollars and cents show a huge loss in revenue if we give them an additional 10 years.
And one thing you need to factor in, if we take those hangars and rent them out 30 years from now, there's going to be probably a considerable renovation cost. Roofs have to be replaced. I mean, that's common.
Well, then, well, you know, that's all true, but we've talked about that when we do it. I mean, we take that risk, and we're going to have to assume old buildings. But I think when we brought that up, when we approved those leases, you know, it was you know, all said, well, these people they've got $1 million airplanes in there. They take pretty darn good care of their facilities, and then probably some language in the contracts about upkeep and maintenance of those. True, they won't be, but I was kind of, when I said to $2,500 a month and just put a low figure in, I'm also not taking, I'm taking that's today's value. I'm not taking future value of money in there.
Folks, have we even thought about, we've been talking about 30 and 40. What about 35? I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't.
And we're deferring this for 3 weeks.
That's something to think about.
Think about it.
It's a fair question.
So my to-do is to ask Graham Colflett and Dr. Egerton what their thoughts are on the dilemma of moving everybody to a 4-year lease.
And since the east side is a new development,
Yeah.
they might, you know, looking at the Gulf Shores, I mean, that was all the same development, the same area.
Well, that's the way I'm
So,
gonna present it. I mean,
Yeah, and just see, can we offer different leases? If they say yeah, then
all right, that's all that's on the formal agenda. Anything else that anybody else wants to discuss? Jeff, anything else?
Good.
Okay, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
All right.
Thank y'all very much.
Thank you.
Tough stuff.
All right.